yeah, it's been quite incredible. I just wish I'd built a bigger stand now.
Update.
Could take another couple thousand, but yeah, it's been fantastic.
All right, everybody, and welcome to episode 266 of the 9 Years podcast. I am Nick Draper. I am joined once again by the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deakins. We are coming to you a day early this week with Don's Trust SPM in mind, but coming to you a day early with a very special guest, and we're delighted to welcome Joe Palmer to the podcast. And Joe, before we say anything else, thank you very much for giving up the time to talk to us, because we know how insanely busy you have been pretty much since you joined the club, to be honest with you. So we must appreciate, though, that you finding a window to chat to us. How have you been? How are things?
Yeah, no, pleasure, and thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's been. I said it's just as you say. It's never ending. It's non-stop. Really, we're constantly looking to improve things, and there's still lots of projects that are ongoing, and still a lot of final fixes on the stadium. So there's plenty to do, so we're keeping busy.
We will get into what's going on sort of behind the scenes, as people would say, at the club, and a little bit onto your time here as well, since you joined a few years back now. But before that, just wanted to pick your brains about a couple of football matters, if we may. The first one, just very quickly, we'll just mention the news. Obviously, we haven't had a game this week. The first team didn't have a competitive game this week. News, though, broke Tuesday. Will Nightingale, unfortunately, injured for, we're looking at 3 to 4 months. Real shame for him. Must be so frustrated. And I suppose you just echo our thoughts in hoping he's okay in himself. I don't know how, if you've spoken to him at all. I imagine it's more of a mental battle for him when something like this crops up.
Yeah, that's obviously very frustrating for all of us, and including Will, because he's obviously we're aware that he had quite a few injury struggles, in the past throughout his career, but actually had a really good run where he'd been pretty much largely injury free, and we'd really seen the benefits of that. His level had gone up, and playing really well, and obviously, having that sort of length of run has enabled him to do that. So, obviously, a big shame for him to miss out and to have to sort of be back on the injury table again. So we do wish him a speedy recovery. And I think mentally, I think the first team is in a very strong place. Certainly with Robbo there, and I'm sure he's taking it in his stride, and he'll get through this one okay.
Looking ahead to upcoming fixtures and what Robbo does with the team, we host Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. Of course, that's a big game for you. I hadn't even thought. I just remembered as I was thinking of it.
Well,
thinking your former club.
I don't know if it's a big game for me. I mean, certainly it's a big game for all of us. They're the sleeping giant of the north, and they also have a really big and loyal fan base. So I'm obviously excited about them coming down and seeing the stadium, and hopefully it goes without incident. That we'll have a good day and get the result that we want ultimately at the end of the day. And certainly there's no sort of split loyalties there. I'm at Wimbledon and I want Wimbledon to win. Really looking forward to it. They're a great crowd. Good loyal historical fans. So, I think it'll be a great day.
How crazy is it that you're thinking that, you think 2 or 3 years ago when you joined us, that you'd be hosting Sheffield Wednesday at Plough Lane? It's quite mad when you think about it, isn't
it? It is, especially when I joined Sheffield Wednesday. They were in the playoff final, and then the following season, the playoff semi-final. So you're right up on the verge of going to the Premier League. And obviously it's very sad to see a club like that slide down the table and back into the first division. So it's not something I enjoy seeing, but I enjoy seeing that for any club. Well, I say any club, there's a few that I probably would, but generally that's not one I do enjoy seeing. So it's a big club, and I think it has the status to be in the Championship, certainly, and I think it should be in there. So I'm sure they'll get back up again. They've got a good manager there now. So so let's see.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was a few days after Sheffield Wednesday, we travel up to Lincoln, and I wanted to ask you your knowledge of fixtures and the fixture computer and how it's put together, because it's been a few years since I've asked or since I've discussed this issue. It used to be the case, if I've got this correct, that clubs were given a survey to fill out before the season in terms of which games they prefer, like home first game, away, any particular dates, any particular preferences. I was wondering, you say that's still the case. We've ended up with a couple of really long midweek away trips, Lincoln being one. We had Rotherham not so long ago as well. Is that just a quirk of the fixture list or the computer? Or
I mean, it's a difficult one. So obviously when the fixtures come out around the 20th of June, the clubs are given a couple of weeks to respond, and we go back with any major issues that we think we're going to have, and we highlight ones that we think are quite difficult, but obviously not all of them, unless there's a really strong reason you're able to move. So yes, it's quite a tough week. There's definitely no denying that. It's just one of those things. They've got to get the fixtures played. Next year is also going to be quite tough because we've got the World Cup. So the season will be starting a week earlier. So the first fixture will be on, I think, around the 30th of July. So, the last few years, and again with COVID, what we had previously was obviously that we were front and back loading games and trying to squeeze everything in. So we had a lot of midweek games, obviously, in the previous season. So it's one of those things that will eventually get back to normal. But like I said, we do try to push back on fixture settings that we think are going to be quite tough for us. But we're not always very successful because ultimately they've just, it's not that easy to schedule all the matches when you've got to think about all the games that need to be played and all the combinations, and particularly when they have issues with having to reschedule games because of cup games or international friendlies, that we've not been able to play, and we've got a few of those that are going to have to be packed in at somewhere, and we won't have a huge amount of choice as to when those games get played. So we try where we can, but more often than not, you're not really that successful with it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? International. I didn't think we'd get a situation where we'd add international enough players to get the international sort of free players, isn't it? Is that right? Free players, and you can request to call it off. I suppose that's a nice thing for the club, isn't it? Because obviously we're getting international recognition. But again, like you say, getting those fixtures in again is challenging, isn't it?
It is challenging. Like I said, you're quite right. It's something that we should be proud of. The fact that we've got international players, and there's more potentially to come. You got Nick and Ayu, who are all sort of on the fringe of that, and we could have more. So it's a nice position to be in, and sort of shows the level that we're operating at now. That we've got players of that caliber. So like I said, it's kind of not really a nice problem to have, but it's nice that we've got this. But it can lead to some more awkward scheduling later down the line. We have to get these games played at some point, but sometimes they can fall at the right time. It just depends where you're at. It depends what the match was that you've missed. There's so many facets to it. Obviously we'd rather not have Saturday, Tuesdays. It's very wearing when you haven't got a huge squad. We're nicely positioned, and hopefully we won't have too many more.
Definitely. So talking about games and stuff like that, I've noticed in the programme you done an article on the ticket situation, and it was really interesting actually when you were saying the numbers that don't come to a game percentage-wise. That was a bit of an eye-opener, because you don't think that. You just think, but of course, don't get me wrong. I missed the Burnham game because I wasn't well, so there's one straight away. I suppose where we were on the sort of season tickets, are we in a position yet where we are able to resell season tickets like we did back at Kings Meadow?
Yeah.
Obviously, I know it's been challenging, the ticketing situation anyway, so that's another thing to add in that. But are we in a situation where we're close to that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, so ticketing, just as a bit of more of an update, really. We've now managed to have a meeting with our ticketing provider, which is really, really useful. We've managed to cover a number of issues. So we're now pretty confident that we can clear a number of those issues that we have had. Some will remain until the close of the season, when we'll need to go back into the system and reset it and build it slightly differently to iron out some of the issues they've had. But we can manually manipulate most of them to ensure that there shouldn't be many more problems with that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of ticket resale, so we have been releasing season tickets. People have been emailing in, and we have managed to do it. Again, it was quite a lengthy process, but this week we've had a much quicker fix for doing that. So we've now got a much simpler solution for releasing those seats, which means we can do a lot more and more quickly. So that's a really good development. We are actually launching a new email address tomorrow morning. Will go out for people to email who want to release their season tickets back for us to sell for match day sale. But we're also looking at a number of other options. That would include potentially an automated one on the ticketing platform itself, so fans will be able to go in to their account and manually release them. We're also trying to look at a more simpler telephone line, if you like. It's something that we're discussing next week with a company to help release those seats, because obviously 1,000 seats is a lot to deal with if you've got a lot of admin around releasing those. So we've got to try and make it easier for ticketing staff to be able to do it, and easier for fans to be able to do it. So, obviously, ideal solution is fans can go in and just press a button and it releases it, and we don't, the club doesn't even need to get involved with releasing, those tickets from an administration type of point of view. So, so we're moving, and it was quite funny. We released some this week, and I saw one today. They released 2 seats today, and while we were still looking at it, within a minute it'd gone. Just
really,
they're literally going as soon as we put them on. Same with when we released the debenture seats and some of the other seats that we have sort of held back, or we don't release until later in the week, like some of the accessibility seats, which obviously we can't release too early. They literally go like that immediately. It's insane. So the demand is really strong, and we want to make sure that we can enable as many people to come to the game as possible, because clearly a lot of people do want to come.
Yeah, has the demand surprised you? I know obviously we've moved to a new ground, but to give you an example, I went to the Papa John's Trophy game against Pompey, and the West Ham was nearly full up. And we all know the politics behind that competition. We don't need to go into that. But I literally was listening. I was like, it was really weird. It was like, there shouldn't be anyone here really for this game. It's a low profile game. But there was loads of families, loads of people saying, it's the first time I've been here. After the game, I did chuckle to myself. After the game, I heard a few people going, I can't wait to go to a league game. And I was being sarcastic, thinking we won't get a ticket. But that sort of side of it. But has that sort of demand surprised you in that? Because if you think about it at the moment, the ground could really be, could be full up most games easily.
Yeah, I think so. Well, particularly when you look at Burton, Burton would normally have been quite a low fixture, and it was so far the highest home attendance we've had, because obviously we could use the seats that are normally blocked out for segregation. They all went. It was phenomenal. I think I spotted a few individual seats dotted around the stadium, which you won't always sell. They're individual, but I mean, it's quite incredible. I think it's taken everyone by surprise. I think. There was a lot of nervousness when we set the target, when we set what we wanted our average attendance to be. I think there was a number of people that were sort of concerned that maybe it was too challenging. There was others who thought, no, we should fill that up. So it was really split down the middle. I think from my point of view, I was always confident that we would hit the average attendance target that we had, but I thought it would take a bit of work. quite a bit of work to get to that. Whereas it hasn't at all. I mean, it's just we're barely having to do any promotion for it. They are just flying. So that surprised me. That has definitely surprised me, that the fact that it's selling out without us really having to push it very much. So it's been it's been quite incredible. I just wish I'd built a bigger stand now.
Update.
Could take another couple thousand, but it's been fantastic.
Is there any update on attendance figures for the first few games?
The first few?
Yeah.
Yes. I haven't got them on me, but the first game Bolton was 7,780, something like that.
Okay.
The next one was, I think, around 7,400.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a Gillingham game?
Yeah. I can't off the top of my head. I can't remember them, but we're average. We're over our average attendance target, which is 7,500. So this will be our biggest game, Sheffield Wednesday. We will finally hit over the 8,000. I think it will be around 8,182, something like that, which would be magnificent. So I think we will be hitting those high sevens, around the 8 for much of the season, I would think.
And selfishly, may I just quickly ask, the Sheffield Wednesday, obviously this won't be happening for the Sheffield Wednesday game because they're going to be bringing a lot of fans, but the exit from the West Stand by the away end, is that going to be open at some point, or is that not going to happen for home fans?
No, that's only an emergency exit. It's not actually a regular exit. No, it's only there for emergency use in case of a fire.
Okay.
So no, it's designed for everybody to move out of the south entrance. No.
So you have to walk out. You have to walk that further. Nick's just moaning he's going to have to walk further.
The long walk around to Earlsfield,
yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
No problems, no worries. Elsewhere, other stadium things. Well, actually, sorry, Stu, I was going to go ahead there, but you've got a question here about ticket office.
Yeah, it's only one thing. Obviously, I know a game like Saturday we're sold out, so there's going to be no tickets available on the day. But do we envisage that we would sell match day tickets, or
if they're available? If they're available, absolutely, we will do. Yeah, no, we've got a ticket office that we haven't opened yet because we haven't needed to. So it's sat there on the east stand at the top, and we're sort of sitting there going, we could probably put something else there now, So no, we have, obviously there'd be ticket collections in the shop, but also we have a ticket collection booth around on the east stand that we've just not opened yet because we've not had tickets to sell. Like I said, you've got a couple of individual seats, but really, they're very unlikely to go. We've certainly not had many people turning up looking for tickets on match days, particularly because they know that it's been sold out. So I think we will start to see that as we've managed to now release more seats, particularly the debenture seats more effectively, and some of the other seats that have been set aside. So we have a number of seats that are set aside for things like school groups, sponsors, and those type of things, but they're not always utilised. And so we will release those as well. Like I said, the accessibility seats as well, we released those quite late on, so that there are sometimes seats available there. So we possibly will be looking at that down the line. I actually would like to be able to open it up. I'd like to see it in use, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was there.
Putting it there.
I didn't realise it was there. To be fair.
Yeah. No, we certainly will if there's the case that we absolutely would, but I think it's difficult to justify opening it if you've got 5 tickets left.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from a personal point of view, the accessible seating is really, really good, Joe, at Plough Lane. My wife's in there and my father-in-law. And to be honest with you, their match day experience at Kings Meadow was not great in terms of where they were, but just from a personal point of view, they are well looked after. Single level. The only problem is my son finds it very, very challenging to run around. He's got more room to run around. But, in terms of, from what I've seen and the feedback I've the actual, I just feel that the match day experience for anyone now I know is accessible seats is really, really good. So from a personal point of view, just wanted to feed that back. I've really been impressed with how they've been looked after.
No, I'm really pleased about that. And we've had good feedback about the seats. I mean, there's such a great view from up there. Best seats in the house, really. Those back row ones. So it's actually one of my favourite places to watch the game from. Is in the southwest corner, where those disability seats are. It's brilliant. And we're looking to try and develop it a bit more on the second floor as well. That's still a project that's ongoing, and we think we can make the wheelchair seats up there even better. So we'll be looking at that hopefully over the course of the season.
Elsewhere in the ground, behind the south stand, Fanzone, are there any further plans to develop that any further, particularly with a view to perhaps some rainy days ahead?
Yeah, no. So it's been a discussion over the last couple of weeks. We've got a number of things. One is we're sort of talking to our brewery partner about some awnings. We'd like to sort of try and get some awnings to cover the kiosks, so when people are queuing for food, they're covered. But I've also been looking at a number of tent type solutions, like temporary tents that we can sort of put up quite quickly. I was talking to Zav about this actually yesterday. So I'm currently looking at sort of measuring up some sites where we could put those, and we'll be looking to buy a few, tests, see how they work, and then potentially look at doing something maybe a little bit more semi-permanent. Again, semi-permanent options are not always cheap. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, you see these sails that you sort of see attached to poles and stuff like that. They are insanely expensive. You're talking around 30 grand for one of those. It doesn't actually cover a huge amount.
Yeah.
So you're actually better off with some of these sort of tent solutions that you can buy for sort of £500, and they might not last the whole season, but so we're definitely looking at that, and we'll be having those in with the next couple of games.
And the pub, which the name's just completely escaped me, the Phoenix.
The Phoenix.
We have called it the Phoenix. Options for opening that in the week? Is that something we can do? Do we have staffing for that? Resources for that?
Yeah, so there's still a few little bits to finish off in there, and the view is that we are going to look to start to open it during the week. Probably start with a Friday night, and also then look maybe to extend it onto a Wednesday. So we really want to sort of test it, see how it operates, and then when we understand the level of demand, we can start to take a view on, okay, is it something we open 7 days a week? Is it going to make money that way, or are we going to lose money doing that? So we're going to sort of test and see. So that should be happening fairly soon.
Any plans in there for like big screens for football? And obviously at Kings Meadow we have an opportunity watching games. Is that something that's possible with the pub area?
Yeah, so there's two in there at the moment. Two have been installed in the moment. We've got a third one to go in. So yes, we will be able to watch football in there. They should be operating for Saturday. There's some work going on tomorrow to make sure that they're showing Sky or BT Sports. So we can get a sense of how well they're working, whether they're positioned in the right places, and we might need to move them around if they're not quite right. Definitely, we're certainly looking to have about 3 screens in there.
Superb. And the South Stand fan zone has been excellent. I won't lie, I wasn't too sure how it would work, if I'm being honest with you. But I have to say it's my favourite part of the ground. Of course, in my seat is my favourite place, but obviously when the game's not being played. But it is really popular down there, Joe, isn't it, in terms of the outlets now? Have you been able to enjoy the cuisine down there? Have you got any favourites?
I have, yeah. No, it's fantastic. I love the pizza guys. They're brilliant. And obviously, it's been that to me has been the bit that's probably given me the biggest smile. Because one of the things that I said a long time ago was that we wanted to replicate the culture that we had at Kings Meadow, and certainly that bit, the way it was designed with the pub sort of outside externally effectively, and you had everyone congregated just outside there, and it was just brilliant. And everyone was very nervous about what would happen when we went to the new stadium. Would that type of atmosphere still remain, given that its structure is so different, and the rules and regulations are so different? And that's why we created the pub where it was, and that's why we created the stairway to come down, to ensure that there wasn't segregation, and that everyone in the west could mix with everyone in the south and east. And that gave that sort of that fan zone, the pub and the fan zone gave everybody that melting pot, to sort of come together and create that culture. And I think it's been absolutely brilliant. I think the feedback I've had from every single person I've spoken to has been that they absolutely love it down there. They love it at the end of the game as well, when we keep that open. And that to me has been amazing, because we spent a lot of time worrying about how that would work, logistically, because you're not leaving the stadium. Most people, for football clubs, they leave the stadium to maybe go to a fan park that's just outside, because generally they want to clear stadiums fairly quickly. But we've managed to convince the SAG that we've got a strong plan in place, and it's just worked beautifully. I mean, I was really stunned the first time we did it. It went as exactly as we'd wanted it to go. People, not everyone stayed, but a lot of people do. They come back, they hang out there, and then gradually that gets smaller, and everyone moves into the pub. And then we close the gates, and everyone's confined in the pub, which is what we were wanting. And then eventually they leave from there. It's just worked like a dream. So I'm really, really pleased with it, I have to say. And it's, like I said, there's a lot of smiley, happy faces in there, because it's a great atmosphere.
Yeah, it's impressive. I like to get to a game early to see people, and I think one of the things that I've noticed, obviously with COVID, you didn't get to see people. We weren't seeing people for a year or so forth, especially you football fans and stuff only go to matches. But I know, like, for one game, I literally bumped into probably 3 or 4 of my mates who don't normally go to games, have been drawn back because of Plough Lane. And literally, you have to chat and I think I got like one game 1 o'clock, and we forgot the game was starting. We were literally too busy just chatting to people, and I think that has worked. I think that has worked amazingly, because you're right. One of the worries I had was moving to Plough Lane, moving to new seats. More stands. How do you get separation from areas? And it just hasn't. I mean, like I say, I think it's been a really, really. My worry is when it's wet, because naturally, that sort of side of it. But I think as a meeting place for all the stands, I think it's been brilliant. I really do. And I think, like I say, with the pub and having, the screens and stuff like that. What have the sales been like? Because obviously that Wimbledon Brewery is really, really popular down there. Always.
Yeah, no, they've been excellent everywhere. I mean, the shop sales have been astronomical. I mean, really phenomenal. And the food and drink has been just the same. We're really pleased with the volumes and the numbers that we're seeing there. I think it can be even more. I still don't think we've seen the full capacity of what can be achieved there. I think there's a number of factors. I think we're all aware of sort of staffing issues. Everyone's suffering from staffing issues as a result of COVID, and we Ellie or have struggled to get to recruit and find qualified members of staff. It's been a real struggle, and same with stewarding companies. The stewarding companies are facing the same issues up and down the country. It's everywhere. The whole entertainment and events business is sort of struggling with that. The resource thing is massive. So I think as time goes on and people become better at serving, things will improve there, and we'll serve more, and maybe we'll get some new serving technologies, and I still think there's definitely still room for improvement, but it's been strong. It's been really good.
You mentioned the stewarding and Elior, who are our hospitality caterers, who look after that side of things, which are external companies, as it were. In terms of our sort of the club and our internal resources, I'm guessing we're also, I know you've mentioned there, sort of bodies is an issue. I'm sure that's just going to be a financial thing, isn't it? That's something that's not going to be solved overnight, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, it always is, and I think it's something that's really important to understand. We're a League One club, and we look at someone like Arsenal. Arsenal have 700 staff.
Yeah,
700 people. I mean, it's huge, and even they have issues. Even they make mistakes. Even they, have problems on, with surveying. They have problems with all sorts of things. You can't always mitigate for them, but as a League One club, we are near as max as we can afford to contribute to start internal staffing. I am talking to the board about a few more positions, and because they are critical, and we do need some more. But we're never going to be able to get to the sort of Premier League level, and yet we're sort of still, we're aspiring and we're trying to be as good as possible, and that includes trying to emulate, sort of Premier League level service where we can. But it's always going to be hard when you don't have the numbers, and I think it's important, for people to understand that we're way off the sort of levels that you would see in clubs higher up the table, so obviously it's going to be impossible for us to ever reach that standard, but we're certainly trying, but it will mean that there are probably more mistakes as a result, and we want to try and minimize those. But this is just unfortunately the situation you're in with at League One. It's almost the worst place to be, because the level of football and the quality of football that you're seeing, and actually the stadium experience is so good, so the expectation level is very, very, very high. About what can be achieved internally, what we can do as a club. When I look around, there's a lot of other League One clubs who they do very little. They literally open for a match day, play the match, and shut down again. They're not, they haven't got huge foundations. They're not trying to, open a pub. They haven't got huge events in the stadium. They're not, haven't built a five-a-side pitch. They're not, we are very active, and we are constantly developing and having new projects. A lot of other League One clubs don't, because they can't, because they really cut back on the resource to put it all into football. But we can't just put everything into football, because we want to be more than the football. This club is more than the football as well. So it's, we do put a bit more resource, but again, we don't have the resource that you're going to have in a Premier League club, or a Championship club, and it's always going to be our struggle, unfortunately, unless we have a really tiny playing budget. So it's just the unfortunate position we're in.
I think you nailed it there with the expectation when you mentioned that. It's funny, isn't it? Because you go to Plough Lane, you see it's a lovely stadium. It really is. But we also can't forget the struggles that we had to get there. You know that well as anybody, Joe, on that side of it. But it does feel like the expectation. I've seen many people come up to me and go, when are we going to build the next stand? And I chuckle to myself, because that's because it's obviously it's sold out near enough, and that sort of side of it. Has Robbo done you any favours with the standard that he's put on the pitch in terms of because let's be fair, Robbo's done a great job along with the management team and the players. I did laugh to myself in a ticketing situation that Robbo's probably stitched you up, because of course loads of people want to see a team. I know we had a little bit of a lull, but that was always going to happen. But do you think it is at expectation level that we do a lot, as you say?
Yeah, I think there is, and the football, and it's always the way, everywhere I've been, I've seen as soon as the team starts playing well or starting to move up the league, the expectations get higher and higher, and it gets tough. But no, I think it's been great. It has, obviously brought a lot more pressure in terms of, people are selling out. I think, actually, I'll rephrase that. Football is, if I ask the question, is the football driving sellout attendances? I think it's certainly helping, but I actually think genuinely there is so much demand. When I go into schools and I speak to people and I speak to other parents, and the demand is there. Everyone's saying, "Oh, I want to get a ticket. I've been down." You're going, "Oh, wow, have you been?" It's not about necessarily what the success on the pitch. There is so much interest to attend the local football club, this new local football club that's new back in the area in the sense, so with a new exciting stadium. So it's a mixture of both, but I think I genuinely believe that even if we were sort of where we've been over the past few seasons, I still think we'd be seeing huge crowds, because it's just an exciting development.
So looking around the stadium, and we've touched on a couple of issues here, has a secret shopper idea, let's broach it that way, is that something that the club considers in terms of someone that's going around just seeing how things are, just to make sure everything's going as it should do, and then feeding back to the club? Is that something that happens? Is that something that could happen?
I think we have about 7,500 secret shoppers. they certainly let us know. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, no, we get emails, messages all the time from fans, and things that they want to see improved. A number of the changes we've already made. We put the drinks bars on the West Stand. We put the baby changings in. We've reduced the price of tea. We've got half pints on sale. We are gradually, moving and changing, and that will always be ongoing. We do have people down. You've seen recently there were some adverts on the OS in relation to some match day staff that we're looking to bring on board. One of these is sort of an operational team, so it's about having one person per stand who is not necessarily undertaking stewarding tasks. They're looking at everything. They're looking at the queues. They're looking at people, what they're buying, where they're standing. They're looking at, how programs are selling. They're looking at all kinds of things so that we can really start to then, after every game, debrief and start to understand, how we can move things around, change things, shape things, where there's bigger queues, where there's smaller queues. So that's something we're doing ourselves as well, internally. But yeah, for sure, we certainly get a lot of requests and feedback on match days. So yeah, there's plenty of mystery shopping, I think, going on already.
Quick question. It's probably me, really. Don's Trust last year done a survey in terms of match day, in terms of what people want, down to food sales and stuff. I have to say the chicken balti pie is special. On that, I've been doing my own promotion for that, Joe. Even to the extent Luke McKenzie literally the other game got one with his son, and he actually come and found me and said, "Stu, you're not wrong." I went, "Okay, there's some good feedback for you."
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's a good pie, yeah.
It's an amazing pie. I'm trying to go away from it, Joe, but like you just go back to what you know. I can't not go there. So it's really good in that side of it. What was I say? There was also about, like, in terms of match day entertainment, sort of pre-match, half-time and stuff like that. And the reason I say it is me and Nick have had many away games where we've had a laugh. I remember going back to like a half-time competition. I think it's Northampton, Nick, where they had to get a ball into the boot of a car. Most stupid idea, but hilarious. Is there any plans for sort of any pre-match or any half-time competitions?
It was Northampton, yes.
Yeah. It was the most stupidest thing, but had us in fits of laughter for a quarter of an hour. Any plans for that at all?
Definitely. No, the only reason we've not started that this year was due to the red zone protocols that were put on us. So we were restricted on what we could do on the pitch, and certainly around the players' tunnel area. Hence why we've not had mascots, because they're not able to come out of the players' tunnel, that type of stuff. But there has... interesting enough, there is an EFL meeting tomorrow, and I'm hoping that we'll get an update, because I have noticed there has been a few other clubs have done a few bits on the pitch at half time. So we need a little bit of clarity on that, because we've certainly not had any information to say that the red zone has disappeared. So that'll be one of my questions at tomorrow's EFL meeting. Because as soon as we're able to do something on the pitch, we definitely will want to do that. Whether that's kicking balls into the boots of cars or whatever. We had a few ideas that we wanted to implement at Kings Meadow, and certainly we'll want to implement here. But yes, it definitely is on our radar, and there's no other reason other than the fact that we've had the red zone. Yeah,
do you think that red zone's lasting too long now in terms of?
If you're asking me personally, I think for the pitch, it's not required. I think in the changing room, yes, that's still a requirement, because the issue you have is that you see today they were saying that we're at the highest COVID cases since, was it July, something like that, it's about 42,000. So it hasn't gone away. And we also have a high number of players that are not vaccinated. And that's across all clubs. It's been one of the biggest challenges is getting players vaccinated. And we've certainly been pushing, and we've increased the number now, but every player that isn't vaccinated is a risk.
Yeah.
And so therefore it does really need to stay in place in the changing areas. But I think on the pitch, I can't see any rationale for why that would still be in play there.
Cool.
And of course, there is no stopping in the red zone, and you can have a drink if you got that reference.
So, yeah, this time of year, I say this time of year, we're coming up to November, aren't we? But the window is coming shortly. Rodvo's been quite honest and said that the budget, he spent a budget. He spent a budget very well. Is there any spare money going around for January window, or are we happy with what we've got? I know that's a lovely and loaded question, but yeah, what's the January transfer window going to bring us, do you reckon?
That's a good question. We are looking at some small increases, just a small increase for potential loan if we require it, just to give us that buffer or that ability. But we also, obviously, it's largely dependent on where we are with our budget and being online with our target. We are online with our target, which is obviously very, really pleasing. It's just whether we can find any more budget. Maybe we'll get a nice FA Cup game, things that could boost that. We might get an offer for a player in January, you never know, and that's what changes the scenario. So there is a small amount that we're sort of leaving aside should we need it. But there's certainly no big spending plans. January is never a really great time to do proactive business. It's really a time if you need to, if you've got a major injury or something like that. That's you certainly don't want to be looking to buy a striker in January because you've been paying double what you should be paying. So I never am a fan of doing business in January. Mostly what we look at would be around loans. They're typically, and have been for us, quite effective. We've had a number of good loans that come in January. So that's what we would really be looking at.
I suppose that probably leads on to the other side of it. Are we concerned about potentially losing anybody during the window? We're in a lovely position now where we've got some really good players now who are attracting interest.
Well, that was always one of the goals. We want players to stay with us, but at the same time, if they do go, we want them to go for a nice tidy sum. At the moment, we've not had any sort of interest in players, but I have no doubt that we probably will. We will have to wait and see. Yeah,
it's amazing how silly fans are when it's that sort of our club, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean that's sort of one of the a silly crossbar challenge where you've got to do it wearing weddings or something like that. It's just something just slightly different. But I mean, I've got to tell you a story that. So basically, when the pitch was built, and we were all sitting there looking out at the porta cabins. We're like, at some point, they're going to come down. I remember it was the first time the players came down to train. Right, first time they'd seen the pitch, been on the pitch that it had been played on. Right, and I remember them putting the goals out. I was like, right, I have to be the first one to put a ball in the net. That is my challenge, right? And I was in these meetings, and it was taking forever. And I was like really eager, like looking out the window. They got on the pitch yet? Are they playing the ball? And literally, as soon as the meeting finished, I pegged it out, right? And I'm wearing, I'll show you what I'm wearing this steel toe cap. So I ran out onto the pitch. I was like, hi guys, yeah, nice to see you. Looks really great, doesn't it? And Nick Dawes, I think, was like, he was playing around with the ball, like out near the halfway line, just sort of kicking it around. And I was like, no one had kicked it in yet. And I was like, give me the ball. He kicked the ball over to me, right? And I stood there, and I was at kind of one of those distances that it was outside the 18-yard box. And I'm thinking, not feeling confident about these steel toe cap boots, right? I thought I've got to do it quickly because someone's going to do it. So I didn't sort of thought I'm not going to run up to it. So I just took this shot with the steel toe-cap boots, and they just went vroom, 1 miles wide. And literally the next thing, Callum Riley just took his ball, turned around, and went bang in the back of the net. And I was like, very frustrated. Couldn't believe it. So that was slightly embarrassing. It looks easy, in front of all the players at the time. So they must have thought it was absolutely horrific.
It looks easy, doesn't it? That's the thing. It looks easy to do, doesn't it? And then you realise actually.
Well, I will say I do blame the boots, but definitely blame the boots. But that was one of my big failures. That was really
Cool.
So, Joe, thank you very much, as I say, for your time with us today. Before you go, can we get a quick prediction for the Wednesday game on Saturday?
Oh, I haven't even thought about that, actually, which is unusual for me. I'm going to go with, I think it's going to be like 2-2.
We'll take that. We'll take a point. Stu, Sheffield Wednesday, 9th as it stands. Don't score many, don't concede many. What do you reckon?
Yeah, do you know what? It's interesting with Joe just saying that, because I looked at it. I think they there's some teams that haven't conceded 10 league goals at the moment. Yeah. I think Wednesday are on about 4 league goals, which I was really surprised conceded. So I'm probably going to go for a crafty 1-0 win.
I'll take all of these. I will take my prediction, Stu. As you well know, it will be a 0-0 draw. Why change the habit of a lifetime?
Yeah. You go to a game expecting no goals.
I'm not expecting it. I'm just saying that's what I
think there's going to be goals. There's definitely going to be a goal. I think more.
I think there probably will be, to be fair. But updates from that will, of course, be on our Twitter at 9Wirers Podcast. But Joe, once again, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you for joining me.
Problem at all.
And thank you for listening. Sign off as we usually do. Alexa Bliss, bad first, milk last. 2 + 2 = 4. And we will speak to you again back next Friday.